Hello, greetings of the day, and I deem it an esteemed privilege to introduce myself as Dr. Vidyavati, Assistant Professor, Christu Jayanti deemed to be University. Today we are going to see a lecture on a short story which is called How Much Land Does a Man Need by Leo Tolstoy, and I'll share my screen. Yes, this is a very beautiful story written by Leo Tolstoy, and the motives are applicable even today, and I'll just detail about it. Yes. So this is the story. How much land does a man need? It's a very famous short story, and we can find the pursuits and the motives which are applicable even today. And about Leo Tolstoy, it is about his biography, and he was born in 1828, and he lived up to 1910. He is considered to be one of the great writers in world literature. He's known for his deep psychological insight and moral themes. His work shaped modern literature and inspired writers worldwide. And I have even given his he was influencing lots of our leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King with his ideas of nonviolence and moral resistance. He is remembered as a literary genius and moral philosopher. And his famous works include War and Peace, Anna Karenina, How Much Land Does a Man Need, which we have taken for analysis. And when it comes to the prose, it is written and published in the year 1886, and the story moves like a parable. We can find the reference going on with moral pursuits, and it moves like a parable, conveying something which is of moral opinions, which is applicable for our lives, and it explores moral and spiritual lessons. And emphasizes on the seven deadly sins, especially the concept of greed. When a person is so much of greed, what happens in his life? This story depicts exactly of that. And when it comes to characters, there are only few characters, and Pam is our protagonist. And the story is usually when it comes to Leo Tolstoy stories, the setting is Russia. We can find the story taking in Russian soil. Pam is the protagonist, and Devil plays a major role because he is also a character who plots everything in this work. You can find peasants playing important role, bashkirs who are illiterate people, and two sisters are there whom we can find at the beginning of the novel, and the landlady who is ready to sell her land, and a steward who levies taxes on peasants. And there is a peasant called Simon who is convicted and later released by the magistrate. When it comes to plot overview, Pam complains in the beginning of the prose. When it is actual text, it is divided into more divisions. In the beginning, we can find Pam complains that if he has got much land, there is no need to beg and borrow with anyone. So it's good if he has much land, he will challenge even the devil. So we can find devil now hears about his speech, and it will say, okay, let me give you more land and then acquire your power. This lies as a topic sentence of this work. And when the story goes on, the devil plots by giving him more land in the village and the neighboring place called Olga, and even in the land of Bashkirs. So he will go from place to place. Movement plays an important role in this work, as we can find Pam staying in a village, moving to neighboring village. Then from there he moves to Olga, and from there to the land of Bashkirs. everything he travels for the sake of land. So his greed for land will be always there for him. The earning will be always there. And Pam greedily tries to claim so much of land. And at one point of time, in the resolution part, we can find he toiling a lot uh, to acquire more land, at last dies. And the irony is, he needs only 6 feet where his body was buried in the land of Bashkirs. This is about the plot overview. So, Pam, he travels to various villages in order to acquire land. At last, he realizes that nothing is like permanent, and he lives his life in the land of Bashkirs in his trial to acquire more land. And when it comes to themes, some of the important themes which are covered is greed and ambition. Pam's endless desire to acquire land leads to his destruction. Contentment versus discontent. So it is usually Tolstoy will be like stressing contentment should be there in everybody's life. When it is not there, true happiness lies in sufficiency. So, when it is sufficient, we should be contented. But here we can see Pam is not at all contented. He want to acquire more land, and he won't bother about anyone. He sells everything, his homestead, his land in the villages in order to buy more land, and he buys that and he sells that in order to buy some more land. So, another theme which is concentrated in is mortality. So, death as an ultimate equalizer. At last, what puts an end to his craving is death. So, we can find in the story as it moves on, he has to come back to the land. When he starts in one point, he has to come back in order to get more lands. He will go, he'll take a huge circumlocution, he will be unable to return back. At last he dies and falls in the land, he collapses there. Temptation and human weakness, which is there in everyone, even in Pam, the temptation is land, and his weakness is to acquire more land. Social inequality, which we can find when it comes to landlady, she will be very much demanding the peasants as, and steward also will levy more taxes when the farmer's animal comes and grazes in their land. So nature versus human desire is also another thing which is concentrated. When it comes to nature, nobody can oppose nature. It will do its duty. When it is human desire, there should be limit for everything. So nature will show its lesson to Pam due to his desire. When it comes to symbolism, we can find throughout the story land, which signifies wealth, power, and temptation. The devil, which represents human weakness, greed, and moral downfall. It is due to devil who plots everything. At last, he will face his death. The Bashkirs are the people who are very innocent people, and they will be ready to give so much of land if the buyers give 1,000 rubles a day. The one constraint is they should be happy by their gifts, in which Pam satisfies them, and they will be ready to give so much of land. Whatever he covers, the land will be his. This is what is their rule. And at last, grave is an important symbolism because you can find at last the true measure of human need is 6 feet of land. And we can find Pam's craving won't stop. At last, he faces death. He will be buried in the same place. And when it comes to literary devices used in the story, it is irony which we can find. Pam dies trying to claim more land. Only he doesn't realize that he needs only 6 feet of land and nothing is permanent. And foreshadowing effect can be seen in which before the night when Pam gets ready for the next day to acquire the land, it will come in a sort of hallucination, and he will be seeing a devil where a man will be lying down on the ground bleeding. It's none other than Pam. So the foreshadowing shows that something is going to happen. Leo Tolstoy beautifully used this technique. And another literary device is allegory, which we can find like Bunyan's Pilgrim Progress, like the devil and other things playing a major role, human nature playing a role in the story. And it goes on parable style, like a Bible, it enforces on moral truth and universal truth that there should be a limit for everything. And at last, death is something which is uncontrollable, and human beings are mortals. Metaphor which we can find in which he acquires the land where the crop grows like anything. A metaphor is given there. And metonymy, the device is used when the forest is represented as the word woods. So Pam gets a land which is partially woods and agricultural land. There, the device metonymy is used. And we can find Leo Tolstoy's story, which is the relevance for even this day. We can find modern consumerism mirrors Pam's greed. We can find people who are on the sort of commercialization, trying to acquire more things without realizing nothing is permanent. Example is our COVID, because we shouldn't have even guessed this will come and sway away and take away human beings like this. And people lost their lives like anything. And what they got is all temporary. Nothing is permanent when it comes to human beings' lives. So modern consumerism mirrors his greed, which is applicable to this concept, raises questions about sustainability, wealth inequality, and happiness. Because when it comes to human life, nothing is predictable. Tomorrow, what is happening, we can't guess. So when it comes to wealth, it comes and goes. Sustainability, it is there. That too, we can't predict our lives will be like that. And timeless lesson, it teaches that chasing more often lead to emptiness. We should get contented with what we have in our life. This is the moral which we can see through this lesson. And thank you for your patient listening. Some of the questions which can be expected from this lesson is about the conversation between the two sisters. In the beginning of the text, we can see the conversation between the two sisters. One sister belongs to the city and she marries a tradesman. Another sister is marries a villager who is Pam, and his wife advocates village life, which we can find. So conversation between two sisters, character sketch of Pam, and the element of greed which can be expected. Apart from this, we can expect question like what are the plans devised by the devil, who are Bashkirs, and why he travels to Volga, what happens in the end, justify the conclusion, bring out the literary devices discussed in the text. And these are some of the expected questions. And holistically, it is a very beautiful piece which conveys a moral, and which conveys that human beings should have this element called contentment in their life. And over average or greed of anything leads to disaster. So, thank you, students, for listening. Have a nice day.